Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learning English Studio, where learning English is easy and fun. I'm Amelia.
Hello, Amelia. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here.
Hi, James. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. And you? You look very happy today.
I am very happy today. I'm excited for our topic today.
Oh, yes, it's a very good topic, very important.
Yes, exactly. But before we start, everyone please remember to subscribe to our channel. Yes, and click the like button. And please share our podcast with your friends and family. It helps us a lot. It really does. Okay, so James, are you ready?
I'm absolutely ready, Amelia. I've been looking forward to this conversation all day.
Perfect. Today we're going to talk about something that so many of our listeners can relate to: how to talk about your studies in English. Whether you're in high school, university, or taking a language course, being able to discuss your educational experience is such a valuable skill.
Absolutely. And I think what makes this topic so important is that education is such a universal experience. Our listeners are all learning English, which means they're all students in some way. Being able to talk about their studies, challenges, and achievements in English is really empowering.
That's so true. And it's not just about academic situations. Being able to discuss your education helps in job interviews, social conversations, and so many other real-life contexts. It's a fundamental way we share who we are and what we're passionate about.
Exactly. And today we're going to cover all the essential vocabulary and expressions you need to talk about your studies confidently. We'll include everything from describing your courses to discussing your academic goals.
I love that. Let's start with the basics: how to answer the question, what are you studying? What are some simple ways to respond?
Good question. The simplest response is, I'm studying blank. For example, I'm studying biology, or I'm studying computer science. You can also specify your level. I'm studying engineering at university, or I'm taking courses at a language school.
Those are perfect. And you can add more detail by saying, I'm in my first year of study. For example, I'm in my first year of university, or I'm in my final semester.
Exactly. And you can mention your institution. I'm studying at blank university, or I'm taking courses at blank school.
Those are great. Let's practice with some examples. James, can you tell us what you're studying?
Sure. I would say I'm studying business administration at State University. I'm in my third year, so I have about 1 year left before graduation. I can also add, I'm specializing in marketing, which I find really interesting.
That's a clear and informative answer. You used excellent vocabulary: studying, business administration, State University, third year, graduation, specializing, marketing, and interesting.
Thanks. What about you, Amelia? How would you answer that question?
I would say, I'm studying literature at City College. I'm in my second year, and I'm really enjoying it. I might also mention I'm particularly interested in contemporary fiction, though I enjoy classic literature too.
That sounds like a fascinating field of study. You used great vocabulary. Studying, literature, city college, second year, enjoying, particularly interested, contemporary fiction, classic literature.
Thank you. I think it's helpful to practice answering this basic question because it comes up so often in both academic and social situations.
Exactly. Let's move on to talking about courses and classes. What are some useful phrases for describing your academic schedule?
Good question. You can use I'm taking to talk about current courses. For example, I'm taking 5 courses this semester, or I'm taking an advanced chemistry class.
Those are perfect. And you can use my schedule includes to give an overview. For example, my schedule includes math on Mondays, history on Wednesdays, and science lab on Fridays.
Those are great. And you can use I have class from to talk about specific times. For example, I have class from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Exactly. And you can use I'm majoring in to talk about your main subject. For example, I'm majoring in psychology with a minor in sociology.
Those are perfect. Let's practice with some examples. James, can you tell us about your courses this semester?
Sure. This semester, I'm taking 5 courses: marketing principles, business ethics, financial accounting, statistics, and organizational behavior. My schedule is pretty packed. I have classes every day from Monday to Friday. My major is business administration, so most of my courses are related to that field. I'm really enjoying marketing principles, but I find statistics quite challenging.
That sounds like a full schedule. You used excellent vocabulary: semester, taking, courses, marketing principles, business ethics, financial accounting, statistics, and organizational behavior, schedule, packed, classes, major, business administration, related, field, enjoying, and challenging.
Thanks. What about you, Amelia? What courses are you taking?
This semester, I'm taking 4 literature courses: British literature, American fiction, creative writing, and literary theory. I also have a language requirement, so I'm taking an intermediate Spanish class. My schedule is a bit more relaxed than last semester. I have Tuesdays and Thursdays completely free for reading and writing. My major is literature, and I'm particularly enjoying creative writing, though literary theory is quite difficult.
That sounds like an interesting mix of courses. You used great vocabulary: semester, taking, literature courses, British literature, American fiction, creative writing, literary theory, language requirement, intermediate Spanish class, schedule, relaxed, completely free, reading, writing, major, particularly enjoying, and difficult.
Thank you. I think it's helpful to be able to express both positive and negative aspects of your studies in a thoughtful way.
Exactly. Let's think about how to talk about study habits and routines. What are some useful phrases for that?
Good question. You can use "I usually study" to describe your typical study times. For example, "I usually study in the evening after dinner," or "I usually study at the library on weekends."
Those are perfect. And you can use "I prefer to study" to talk about your study preferences. For example, "I prefer to study in complete silence," or "I prefer to study with background music."
Those are great. And you can use "my study method involves" to describe how you learn. For example, "My study method involves making flashcards and reviewing them regularly."
Exactly. And you can use "I find it helpful to share study tips. For example, "I find it helpful to summarize my notes after each class."
Those are perfect. Let's practice with some examples. James, can you tell us about your study habits?
Sure. I usually study in the evenings after my classes, for about 2 to 3 hours each day. I prefer to study in the library because it's quiet and I can focus better there. My study method involves reviewing my class notes first, then doing the required readings, and finally working on assignments. I find it helpful to create a study schedule at the beginning of each week. It helps me stay organized and make sure I cover all my subjects. I also like to study with a small group for difficult subjects like statistics. We can explain concepts to each other.
That sounds like a very organized approach to studying. You used excellent vocabulary. Usually study, evenings, classes, hours, each day, prefer to study, library, quiet, focus better, study method, involves, reviewing, class notes, required readings, working on, assignments, find it helpful, create, study schedule, beginning, each week, stay organized, make sure, cover, subjects, study with, small group, difficult subjects, explain concepts.
Thanks. What about you, Amelia? What are your study habits?
I usually study in short bursts throughout the day rather than for long periods at once. I prefer to study in my dorm room, where I have all my books and resources around me. My study method involves reading the material first, then making detailed notes, and finally trying to connect the ideas to other things I've learned. I find it helpful to take regular breaks while studying. It helps me maintain focus. I also like to discuss what I'm learning with friends from my classes. Explaining concepts to others helps me understand them better myself.
That sounds like an effective study method. You used great vocabulary. Usually study, short bursts, throughout the day,
long periods, prefer to study, dorm room, books, resources, study method, involves, reading, material, making detailed notes, connect, ideas, find it helpful, take regular breaks, maintain focus, discuss what I'm learning, friends from my classes, explaining concepts, understand them better.
Thank you. I think it's helpful to talk about study habits because it gives us new ideas for how to learn more effectively.
Exactly. Let's think about how to talk about academic challenges and achievements. What are some useful phrases for that?
Good question. For challenges, you can use I'm having difficulty with or I'm struggling with to talk about problems. For example, I'm having difficulty with this math concept, or I'm struggling to keep up with the workload.
Those are perfect. And you can use one challenge I'm facing is to describe specific difficulties. For example, one challenge I'm facing is balancing my studies with my part-time job.
Those are great. For achievements, you can use I'm proud of or I was happy to talk about successes. For example, I'm proud of my presentation last week, or I was happy to receive a good grade on my essay.
Exactly. And you can use I recently achieved or I successfully completed to share accomplishments. For example, I recently achieved my goal of improving my speaking skills, or I successfully completed a challenging research project.
Those are perfect. Let's practice with some examples. James, can you tell us about a recent academic challenge and achievement?
Sure. One challenge I'm facing right now is my statistics course. I've never been strong in math, and the concepts are quite complex. I'm having difficulty understanding probability theory, and I struggled with my last midterm exam. However, I recently achieved a good score on my marketing project after working hard on it for several weeks. I was proud of how I presented my ideas to the class, and my professor gave me positive feedback. I also successfully completed a group project where we had to create a business plan. It was challenging, but our team got a high grade.
That sounds like you're overcoming challenges while celebrating successes. You used excellent phrases. Challenge I'm facing, statistics course, strong in math, concepts, complex, having difficulty, understanding, probability theory, struggled with, midterm exam, recently achieved, good score, marketing project, working hard, proud of, presented, ideas, professor, positive feedback, successfully completed, group project, business plan, challenging, team, high grade.
Thanks. What about you, Amelia? Can you tell us about a recent academic challenge and achievement?
Of course. One challenge I'm facing this semester is my literary theory class. The readings are very dense and abstract, and I'm struggling to grasp some of the complex concepts. I had difficulty with my first essay in that class and received a lower grade than I hoped for. However, I recently achieved a better understanding of the material after meeting with my professor during office hours. I was proud of my last creative writing assignment. I wrote a short story that my teacher really liked. I also successfully completed a challenging presentation on postmodern literature, even though I was nervous about speaking in front of the class.
That sounds like you're growing as a student. You used great phrases. Challenge I'm facing, literary theory class, readings, dense and abstract, struggling to grasp some of the complex concepts, difficulty with essay, received a lower grade than I hoped for, recently achieved a better understanding of the material, meeting with professor in office hours, proud of my creative writing assignment, wrote a short story that my teacher really liked, successfully completed a challenging presentation on postmodern literature, nervous about speaking in front of the class.
Thank you. I think it's helpful to talk about both challenges and achievements because it gives a balanced picture of the student experience.
Exactly. Let's think about how to talk about academic goals and future plans. What are some useful phrases for that?
Good question. For you, you can use after I graduate, I hope to talk about immediate plans. For example, after I graduate, I hope to find a job in marketing.
Those are perfect. And you can use my academic goal is to discuss what you want to achieve. For example, my academic goal this semester is to maintain 3.5 GPA.
Those are great. and you can use I'm planning to pursue to talk about further education. For example, I'm planning to pursue a master's degree after my bachelor's.
Exactly. And you can use in the future, I'd like to discuss long-term aspirations. For example, in the future, I'd like to become a researcher in my field.
Those are perfect. Let's practice with some examples. James, can you tell us about a recent academic challenge and achievement?
Sure. My academic goal this semester is to improve my grade in statistics. I'm aiming for at least a B. After I graduate next year, I hope to find an entry-level position in a marketing company. I'm planning to pursue an MBA in a few years, but first I want to gain some work experience. In the future, I'd like to become a marketing director for a major company. I'm also interested in starting my own business eventually, maybe in the digital marketing field.
That sounds like a well-thought-out plan. You used excellent phrases: academic goal, improve my grade, aiming for, graduate, next year, hope to find, entry-level position, marketing company, planning to pursue, MBA, few years, gain work experience, future, would like to become, marketing director, major company, interested in starting, own business, eventually, digital marketing field.
Thanks. What about you, Amelia? What are your study goals and future plans?
My academic goal this year is to develop my writing skills. I want to become more confident in my academic writing. After I graduate, I hope to work at a publishing house or literary magazine. I'm planning to pursue a master's degree in literature, possibly with a focus on creative writing. In the future, I'd like to become a published author, maybe write novels or short stories. I'm also interested in teaching literature at the college level eventually, combining my love of reading with my desire to help others learn.
That sounds like a wonderful vision for your future. You used great phrases: academic goal, develop, writing skills, become more confident in academic writing, graduate, hope to work, publishing house, literary magazine, planning to pursue, master's degree, focus, creative writing, future, would like to become, published author, write novels, short stories, interested in teaching, college level, eventually, combining love of reading, desire to help others learn.
Thank you. I think it's helpful to talk about academic goals because it shows direction and purpose in your studies.
Exactly. Let's think about some common academic situations and how to talk about them in English.
Good idea. For exams, you could use phrases like, I have an exam tomorrow, or I need to study for my midterm.
Those are perfect. For assignments, you could say, I have a paper due next week, or I'm working on a group project.
Those are great. For class participation, you could use, I participated in the discussion today, or I gave a presentation in class.
Exactly. For grades, you could say, I got a good grade on my test, or I'm worried about my final exam.
Those are perfect. Let's practice with some examples. James, can you tell us about a recent academic situation?
Sure. Last week, I had a midterm exam in my business ethics class. I studied for it for several days, reviewing all the case studies we had discussed. I think I did well, though I won't get my grade back until this week. I also had a group project due in my marketing class. Our group had to create a marketing plan for a new product. I was responsible for the market research section, which I found interesting. We presented our plan to the class, and our professor seemed impressed with our work.
That sounds like a busy but productive week. You used excellent vocabulary. Last week, midterm exam, business ethics class, studied, several days, reviewing, case studies, discussed, think I did well, get my grade back, group project, due, marketing class, create, marketing plan, new product, responsible for, market research, section, found interesting, presented, professor, seemed impressed, work.
Thanks. What about you, Amelia? Can you tell us about a recent academic situation?
Last week, I had to submit an essay for my American literature class. The topic was about the theme of identity in contemporary novels, which I found fascinating. I spent several days in the library doing research and then wrote the paper over the weekend. I also gave a presentation on postmodernism in my literary theory class. I was quite nervous, but I think it went well. My professor asked some challenging questions, but I was able to answer them. I'm still waiting for my grades on both assignments.
That sounds like an academically challenging week. You use great vocabulary. Submit, essay, American literature class, topic, theme, identity, contemporary novels, found fascinating, spent several days, library, research, wrote, paper, weekend, gave a presentation, postmodernism, literary theory class, nervous, went well, professor, challenging questions, able to answer, waiting for, grades, assignments.
Thank you. I think it's helpful to practice talking about specific academic situations because it makes our language more concrete and practical.
Exactly. Let's think about some common mistakes that learners make when talking about their studies.
Good question. I think one common mistake is using the wrong prepositions with academic terms, like saying I'm good in math instead of I'm good at math, or I'm studying on business instead of I'm studying business.
That's such an important point. And another common mistake is confusing similar-sounding words like study and learn. For example, saying, I'm learning biology at university, instead of I'm studying biology at university.
Oh, that's a big one. And another mistake is using the wrong verb forms, like saying I'm study instead of I'm studying, or I enjoy to study instead of I enjoy studying.
Exactly. And I think another common mistake is using vocabulary that's too general. Instead of just saying, I like my classes, it's better to be more specific, like, I particularly enjoy my literature classes because we discuss fascinating ideas.
Those are perfect examples. And I think it's important to mention that it's okay to keep things simple when you're starting out. You don't need to use complex sentences or advanced vocabulary to communicate effectively about your studies.
Absolutely. Language learning is a journey, and every step forward is progress. Even being able to say, I study English, I like my class, my teacher is good, is a great achievement for a beginner.
That's so true. And as you become more confident, you can gradually add more detail and complexity to your descriptions. It's all about building on what you already know.
Exactly. Let's think about some practice activities our listeners could do to improve their ability to talk about their studies.
Good idea. Well, they could practice describing their studies using the phrases we've discussed today. They could start with basic descriptions and gradually add more details about courses, likes and dislikes, study habits, etc.
That's a great start. And they could prepare answers to common academic questions like, what are you studying? What do you like about your courses? Or what are your academic goals?
I love that idea. And they could keep a study journal in English, writing about what they learned each day and how they felt about it.
Exactly. And they could also form a study group with other English learners to practice discussing academic topics in English.
Those are all fantastic suggestions. I think the key is to connect the language learning to your real academic experience. The more relevant it is to your life, the easier it will be to remember and use.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and improve. That's how we all learn, isn't it?
That's so true. I think it's helpful to remember that even native speakers sometimes struggle to articulate their academic experiences clearly and concisely.
Exactly. The goal is communication, not perfection. As long as people can understand what you're studying and how you feel about it, you're succeeding.
That's such an important perspective. Well, James, we've covered so much ground today, from basic course descriptions to academic goals, from study habits to common situations.
We really have, and I hope our listeners have found it helpful and inspiring. Remember, being able to talk about your studies is such a practical skill in English.
Absolutely. And it's a great way to share your academic identity and connect with others who share similar interests. Everyone is or has been a student, so it's a topic that connects us all.
Exactly. So keep practicing, keep learning, and don't be afraid to talk about your studies in English.
That's perfect advice. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for joining us on Learning English Studio.
Yes, thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into talking about your studies in English. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our podcast if you found it helpful.
We'll be back next week with another useful topic for English learners. Until then, keep practicing and enjoy your learning journey.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.